Okay, I guess that means we're officially a go since we're recording now. Okay, if we want to move to the next slide. Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Just welcome to our 8th Aggregation Advisory Group meeting, our Clean Energy Columbus group meeting, advisory group, I should say at this point. Today is really our last meeting as kind of the official advisory group. We have a lot of exciting items to share today, but before I even get into it, I am going to hand it over to Alec just to do some reminders for the meeting today.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Just quick reminders. Please keep yourself on mute. We're recording. You see the red dot in the corner, so this will be available afterward. Please take a moment to just rename yourself if you can with your organization in it. I know we're mostly familiar in this group, but just add your organization there if you will. And with that, I will also please feel free to put comments in the chat as always, and we'll make sure to address them as we go or when we get to a discussion juncture. And I'll hand it back over to you, Erin.
Thanks, Alec. Appreciate it. So certainly wanted to start off with just kind of a brief overview of the agenda for today. So we're really planning to kind of reconnect, share updates, and talk about the launch of Clean Energy Columbus. First, we're going to review what we talked about in our last meeting in April. Again, provide updates and logistics on the aggregation program itself. Revisit the emerging energy efficiency program design work, and then just honestly have lots of time for any questions, group feedback, and kind of reactions. So if we go to the next slide. And then if we want to go to the next. So yeah, at our last meeting in April, we spent a good amount of time talking about the Clean Energy Columbus website and wanted to get feedback and kind of thoughts on the preliminary website. We took a look at a couple of other cities' aggregation program websites just to kind of get folks' reactions to those, what they liked, what they didn't like, and make sure that we were capturing that. I will say, you know, I think it was really great to get all of that feedback from the group. We got honestly great feedback. Folks felt that the website did a pretty great job of capturing information, had the right, I think, level of information available, but there were still areas that we could tweak and make improvements. So I am going to kind of walk through some of the changes that we have made to the website as it is, but I will also note that we are in the process of actually overhauling the entire website. So we kind of have the website that we all looked at the last meeting. That is still up. We've made some changes there, but we are in the process of doing a brand new website that I think you all will be really excited about. I've seen some of the preliminary design templates and it looks really, really great. And it will have even more functionality and information and just content than the site that we have now. That is probably not going to be done until around July. So that's just what you could expect kind of on that timeline. But with the website that we do have, so when it comes to just the page layout and presentation, we did add a pop-up window that spoke specifically to the opt-out process and kind of that opt-out ability, just so that folks know that that is very clear and kind of front and center, especially because, you know, we've been going through that opt-out process and so many people in the community are getting the opt-out letters. We just wanted to make it really clear and kind of upfront. As soon as people go to the website, they kind of have that information. Overall framing and wording, I know this came directly from one of our advisory group members. Mentioned, you know, we need to really make sure it's clear that this is what folks voted on last November. So we changed right on the landing page. It says, you know, you voted, we listened, Clean Energy Columbus is starting this June. So we did make that change on that home landing page, just to remind folks again that this is what they voted on last November. When it comes to visual representation, we did add a Clean Energy Columbus video. So this is a video that is on YouTube that the city had kind of put together, our team had put together really last fall. We wanted to make sure that was on the website. It's really just kind of a basic overview of what aggregation is and that the program is starting in June. And then we also added the city's logo, AEP Energy's logo, and Trey Bell's logo to the Who We Are section, just to kind of help make it even clearer who is involved with the program. And yeah, so. And then other features, we did add a short translation on the homepage so that folks know they can call AEP Energy for more information. And then there's actually a translation service. If they call that number, you know, they can just ask for the language that they need, and they'll be able to speak to someone and kind of get that translation services. So we added that in Spanish and Somali on the homepage. And I will note that is something we are definitely adding to the overhaul, the new website that we will have. We are going to make that even more robust, and we are going to be adding kind of that button that will pull the website, the entire website, and all of the content and information to get it translated over into Spanish and Somali. Those are some of the main changes that I kind of just wanted to walk through and share. And note that a lot of those, sorry, phone call there, were made based on the feedback we received from you all at the last meeting. Yeah, we can go to the next slide, Alec. And so next, just wanted to updates and steps on actually establishing the Clean Energy Columbus program itself. So go to the next slide. So this is just a quick reminder. I know we've all seen this slide many times, but I think it really is a good just overview of what the program looks like. We are in that first bridge phase right now, the kind of rec back period that is going to be getting us to that all Ohio based wind and solar. So if we want to go to the next slide. Yeah, so very exciting. The launch is official. The clean energy has started flowing as of June 1, and did kind of want to share out where we were in terms of participation and enrollment in the program. So you can kind of see there the numbers. That is from earlier this week. I do think we still have, and Frank or Scott can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think it's between 10,000, 15,000 that are still kind of in that process of getting enrolled into the program. But I know we've been really happy with kind of the numbers that we're seeing. And as you can see there, we've only had about 7% of those that have been eligible opt out of the program. So that's really great and really exciting. Workforce Development Committee, wanted to give an update on that front. So we are looking at having that first meeting of that Clean Energy Workforce Development Committee in July. Per the agreement that we have with AEP Energy, the co-chairs of the committee are the city and AEP Energy. And so the co-chairs are going to be myself and Frank Wilson. And then we are still working on identifying the other partners who will be a part of that work. But I think we're kind of really envisioning that that committee is going to be very much a working committee and kind of helping oversee some of the energy efficiency programming that we've been working on and sharing out with all of you all. And then setting up the fund. So this is specifically around the community grant fund. We've talked about this before, that the city always intended to make sure that that funding was specifically used for sustainability and climate purposes. So we are in the process right now of creating that fund that is going to be the Sustainable Columbus Fund, so that it will go into its own kind of separate fund. And I'm just noting that because, again, many cities, when they establish their aggregation programs, if they choose to do a community grant, sometimes they go and just put it back into the general fund. We wanted to make sure that it was set aside separately so that we, can keep track of those funds and make sure that we're utilizing them for sustainability and climate purposes. And specifically, as we've talked about, more so residential energy efficiency, I think, especially as we think about the source of where these funds are coming from. But we're still working through some of the logistics and putting together the budget. And then did just want to remind folks that that funding is coming in on a monthly basis. So we won't just have all of the funds kind of right up front, but as the program is getting started, we'll start to receive that on a monthly basis. So, and I did see, I think, Larry, you had a question on the Workforce Development Committee and some of its duties. So we're still somewhat in the process of putting that together and fleshing it out a little bit more. But like I said, I think we're going to be doing kind of regular check-ins once we get through the energy efficiency programming and kind of get all of that squared away and are really ready to move forward with it. I think we would envision that that committee is getting regular updates on how that programming is going. Again, with the Workforce Development Committee, it was part of the agreement that we have $300,000 that is specifically allocated to workforce development, clean energy workforce development. And so that is another one of the main roles of the committee, is just kind of overseeing those funds and how they're utilized.
Aaron, just to add to that, so our conversations have been, really centered around putting together a more operational workforce development committee versus an advisory committee. So essentially having people who are directly involved, organizations directly involved in delivering the workforce work here in Columbus, sitting on that committee and using it as a way to convene and coordinate between those organizations. And as far as the funding and the spending is concerned, that money will sit with the city. So would expect to get recommendations from the Workforce Development Committee, but any funding would still need to go through, your usual city processes. And we will be providing that Workforce Development Committee with a monthly update on the status of the fund that we're setting up so that they can do their due diligence and keeping track of where the money's going and, what we're getting in return for it.
Hey, Aaron, one quick update. I was putting this in the chat for Elder Price, but I'll just tell the group. From our standpoint, we wanted to have not just me, but somebody that's actually doing workforce development at AEP. A very talented woman named Marquita Franklin, who leads a lot of our workforce development, runs a program called Women in Line that recruits women as to work on the power lines and in the utility industry. And she also leads a lot of our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and she has agreed to join it as well. So that's a late breaking update I wanted to share with the group.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Frank, and Brian, for a little bit more of that context. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was alluding to and saying it was more of a working committee, but maybe should have elaborated on a little more. Okay, if we want to go to the next slide.
I'm sorry, Aaron, I put it in the chat, but I know you're moving. Just quick question, and only because are we looking for any kind of community persons to be involved in the workforce? That's really what my ultimate question was. If not, fine, but just wanted to know.
Yeah, I think we already have kind of an idea of the folks that are probably that we are planning to add, just only because, to Brian's point, I think we were looking at folks who are going to be really involved with the day-to-day work and some of the programming aspects. Is that helpful? So
yeah, that's fine. I just
okay.
We just want to know were there any community type of folk on the work. That's why I asked about what was the duties of it, or what is it designed to do, and if so, would there be any community people on it, for lack of a better way to say it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're really looking at this as less of an advisory or a feedback committee and more, like I said, of an operational committee. So, as far as the duties, the idea would be that we have, and I'll talk through some of our draft ideas for workforce a little bit later, but, essentially use this as a convening under the umbrella of Sustainable Columbus. So all the reports will roll up to that advisory group, but use it as a convening to coordinate the actual implementation of workforce programming versus brainstorming and advising on that programming.
Yeah, thank you though, Larry, for the questions, and it's always appreciated. So So in terms of the opt-out process itself, just kind of honestly a little bit of a refresher that the opt-out letters have been going out. That process is kind of winding down at this point. But I did want to make sure and note as well so that folks know and are aware, there are actually 2 points of contact and communication that residents really get about the program. So they receive the opt-out letter that is coming from the city and from our Clean Energy Columbus program. So that is kind of coming directly from us, notifying them that they're eligible to participate and that, you know, if they don't take any action, they will be enrolled in the program. If the person does not take any action, they do get a second notification that comes from the utility and from AEP Ohio. That has been going out in the form of an email, and it just notifies them that their supplier has been switched. So that sometimes is where residents will, maybe they don't always catch the letter on the front end, or they do, but they kind of, you know, set it aside. Sometimes it's that second notification that comes from the utility that catches them. So I did want to make sure that folks were aware that they do get that second piece of of communication that comes from the utility. But unfortunately, it doesn't really say specifically that it's for the Columbus Clean Energy Aggregation Program. So that's sometimes where residents might start to have questions. And then did want to make sure that the group is aware as well that we are going to be doing bi-monthly refreshes in the fall. And so this is where opt-out letters will be going out to folks who are basically that have established a new account. Kind of always trying, you know, as people move or kind of come into the city or move out of the city, we just always want to make sure we're doing our best to capture all of those folks and get them enrolled into the program.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
Just quickly, I was going to say that will be a bi-monthly, yeah, it says there on the graphic, but just to point out to the group, that will happen every other month. So should you have constituents in your community or your organization, you know, say, hey, I've heard that these letters are going out again. That's why. So go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I was just going to note that the first mailing that we just did, I mean, just to give you some comprehension, I knew it would be this big, which is why we did bi-monthly, but I think, wasn't there like 7,000 new names on the new meters on this list, which is huge. I mean, it's a lot of meters. So it's good that we bumped this thing up to a bi-monthly. It's a lot more work on our end, but I think it's worth it in the end.
And I know we're going to have time at the end, but I do see Cheryl, I think you have your hand raised. Did you have a question on the opt-out process or the refreshes?
Yes, I was a little late getting to the meeting. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I may have been answered earlier. I am somebody who apparently still is involved with another energy company. Is there an easy way to opt in? What I mean is for somebody who perhaps, you know, had an ongoing contract that wasn't up when you were sending out the letters, or, you know, identifying eligible people. Is it clear how to opt in if at some point you say, oh, well, I wanted to get into this once my contract is over?
Yeah, Cheryl, I'll take that one. It's super simple. First, I would encourage you to make sure that you don't have an early termination fee with your current supplier. So call them and in your service with them before you do this. And then it's the easiest way is you can go to either cleanenergycolumbus.org or aepenergy.com/cbus. CBUS. Either one of those will give you the clear instructions on, you can either call in via phone or you can do it online. It's super simple, but make sure that you take care of your current supplier first, because I don't want you to get hit with an early termination fee.
Well, the thing that is like, how would I know that if I wasn't sitting on this kind of call? Is that going to be advertised in some way? Is it going to be made obvious to people? Are you going to send letters as people are coming? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is in our FAQs. I'm looking to Scott to see if he has any insights, but that's and if they call in to us first, that's certainly something that we're training our contact center folks to say. Now, we are not specifically advertising that, but if they call in, that's one of the things that we counsel them, or if they have, if they read the FAQs.
And I just want to mention that I was just on Facebook yesterday, and somebody was asking about whether or not they had what would happen about this program and what was going on with it. And I think Kathy Beck. Oh wait a minute, who was on that? Yeah. And basically a couple of people who are really, well educated, well plugged into stuff, people were saying, well, I think I may have thrown away that letter, so I guess I'm locked it in. Great. So that was basically their comment. I just wanted to mention it.
Well, one other thought for Aaron, we are working on a social media editorial calendar for different topics and posts. That may be one we'll explore adding. I think it would be good content to push out to customers.
Trey Bell has created an informational piece which we can create and add to the FAQs, because I'm diligently over here looking for how do you opt in under that scenario. And your comment here today is going to drive me crazy that it's not up here already. So I'm looking at the website. I don't see it. I will. I've already written it down that we need to get that up in here somewhere. And so it's not in the FAQs and it's not on the other piece. But I'll put this thing together and get it up on the FAQ part on how you opt in at a later date. So we'll definitely get that. Thanks for pointing that out.
Aaron, if I may, this is Elder Price again. Back to the point of the people getting a penalty who did not know the process, so to speak, and then they get a penalty after the fact. Just want to make sure we put some emphasis in terms of our outreach, that the potential for that is to happen, just so they can't say that, we didn't address it, or at least put it in something, that there was the possibility of a penalty. So
Larry, I think what you're saying is, and Trey Bell has always addressed this. In fact, it's anybody who calls into our office, any of your folks that call Trey Bell, we always address this first thing. In telling people, call your existing supplier first. Make absolutely sure that you don't have an early termination fee. And we even put that in our literature that we've always done to let people know. But absolutely, I think everything you just said makes a ton of sense, because that's what drives our process, is when we hear people call in, they said, so-and-so, another broker told us to do this, we did it. And, 3 months later, we have this opt-out, drop fee, which was significant, and they're angry about it. And we just avoid that. But that'll be part of our literature. Thanks. My feed is hard to hear. How could it be? AEP gave me this fancy headset. It's supposed to be perfectly clear.
All right. Well,
sorry, everybody.
Yes. No, that's okay. Thank you for the great question, Cheryl. It's great feedback. I think only quick thing I would add, I think we've just been really focused on educating on folks on the basics and the folks who are eligible for the program currently, but that is definitely great feedback. And we definitely want to make sure we're speaking to those folks in the community who might already have an alternative supplier, but want to be joining our Clean Energy Columbus program. And I do see Kathy has her hand up, but Kathy, I might move us on to the next. We're going to take a pause for some questions a little bit and just 1 or 2 more slides here. So, and I feel like this one might be one where people have a lot of thoughts and feedback too. So I wanted to make sure we have plenty of time for it. So one of the updates we did want to share out on is with the price to compare and kind of where Clean Energy Columbus is falling versus the AEP Ohio standard service offer, or that kind of PTC, because we do now know what that price is going to be for the month of June. So wanted to put up here, just what the Clean Energy Columbus program is bringing to the community and to a resident, what you're getting with the standard service offer, which is just kind of that default. There is a bit of a price difference. So with the Clean Energy Columbus program, for an average bill, for an average home of, what you would be using in a month, it is a difference of about $1 more. So did want to kind of put that out there. But then when you kind of look at everything that you're getting with the Clean Energy Columbus program, we know what that price is going to be for an entire year. It's 100% clean energy, getting us to Ohio wind and solar, which means a cleaner air, healthier community, better living environment for our entire community. It includes that community grant that we're going to be able to reinvest in our opportunity neighborhoods that have been hit hardest by climate change. We're supporting over 4,500 Ohio jobs. And again, it's supporting Columbus clean energy workforce development as well. And then with the standard service offer, that is only the price for June. So I just want to make that clear too, because I think a lot of people don't always understand this. That price actually fluctuates. We do not know what it's going to be beyond June. Sometimes you'll know what it is for a month. Sometimes it's 2 months. We just don't know at this point. And then with that standard service offer, again, you're just getting that traditional grid power mix. It's mostly going to be from polluting sources. So not good for our environment or community on that front. And then just wanted to remind folks as well that with Clean Energy Columbus, that rec mix that we're looking at for the first year is Midwest recs. So we've got Ohio Hydro and Indiana Waste Heat for the first year of the program. But then again, in the second year, we'll start to blend in those Ohio wind and solar as it comes online, and then be moving over to all Ohio wind and solar by 2023, 2024. And so again, I think, we feel like the Clean Energy Columbus program really is the best value for our residents and for the community. But again, at the end of the day, it is up to the resident. They have that option, whether or not they want to participate. So I'm just trying to check and see. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide. And with this one, I am actually going to hand things over to Sam Schneider, because I know we've gotten some questions with our Solar United Neighbors Co-op going on, and then with Clean Energy Columbus, wanted to make sure we touched on that. So
thanks, Erin. Hello, everybody. I think maybe you remember me. If not, I'm the energy manager for the city of Columbus. You may see I'm Samantha Schneider in parentheses Richie now. I'm in the process of changing my name because I got married. So that's been a lot of fun, being unsure what my name is. But right now we are running a solar co-op. Part of the city's effort to encourage residents to adopt solar PV. It's just lagging a little bit behind where we would expect it to be in Columbus based on prices and the availability of rooftop space. And this is just meant to be another option for people. But during those educational sessions throughout the co-op, we had a lot of questions about how would doing solar impact the Clean Energy Columbus program, and would adding solar panels take away from that program? And if you do put solar panels on your house, you're not going to be buying as much energy through Clean Energy Columbus or from whoever your supplier is. So in that way, they kind of, you might say that they almost work against each other, but we don't look at it that way. We're looking at it as, it depends on a person's situation and their preferences as to whether a resident would participate in Clean Energy Columbus or the solar co-op. Maybe you even participate in both, or maybe you participate in neither. It's just meant to be a way to offer something to everyone, despite the very huge variety of situations that our residents are in. So we made this diagram to kind of show what might be better depending on the situation. So for Clean Energy Columbus, you can be a renter, you could be a homeowner. You see in the middle there, we have some overlap, and small business owners up to 700,000 kilowatt hours per year. So anybody who doesn't want to make a big investment in the panels, or they don't want a long-term commitment, maybe you're getting financing and you don't want to be tied to that property for a long time, maybe just participate in Clean Energy Columbus and you still get 100% renewable energy. Maybe you have a roof that's needing replaced and you don't want to attach a bunch of panels to it. Again, maybe stick with Clean Energy Columbus. On the other hand, solar panels might make sense if, if you're a Division of Power customer, you cannot participate in Clean Energy Columbus because, as we know, it's only for AEP Ohio customers. Division of Power doesn't currently have a net meter rate, but they're working to add one. And we do have Division of Power customers, residents that have solar PV on their site. So it is possible. Any type of small business owner. And if you just like the idea of owning your own power generation, some people like solar panels because they want to have a battery backup system. Maybe they have some specialized medical equipment, or they have an electric vehicle and they'd like to be able to charge that even if the grid is down. If you're putting solar on your roof, it's always a good idea to start with a good newer roof, not one that you're gonna have to move all the panels off to replace. And I did see some questions coming through, so I'm gonna open up the chat. Looks like Laura asked, how are Division of Power users using the solar co-op opportunity without net metering? That's a great question. So you can still offset your Division of Power bill. Their meters just don't run backwards. And they're actually starting to install meters that will run backwards, and they're working to develop a net metering rate. So it does adversely affect the financials, but the systems that they see generally are much smaller, so they're not really ever in a situation to overproduce. And they don't want to exclude people from adopting solar technology, knowing that the meters are going to be updated and there will be a net metering rate. So we didn't want to tell people that they couldn't do it. I don't know how many of our current co-op members are on Division of Power, but it's certainly more financially beneficial if you are on AEP Ohio. Then we got another question here.
It's also from me.
Yeah. So do I know?
You had mentioned when we were talking, you had mentioned they're working on it. And I was just wondering if you had a sense of when Division of Power would have net metering, because I'm just thinking on our end, we're working with larger consumers. And right now we're having to recommend that they leave city power so that they can use interconnection.
Mm-hmm.
And
I see. Yeah.
I would like to not have to make that recommendation. I want people to stay in power.
Well, my understanding is that ideally it will be done by the end of the year, but they don't have a firm timeline just because of all the variables that are involved. They're basically working on their, entire rates, and that will just be one component of it. So the goal is for the end of this year to have that done.
Okay. Is there a way, would we just check in with you to sort of get an update on that?
Sure, if you want to, absolutely.
Okay. I just want to, like I said, I want to be able to not move anyone from City of Power if they're we time their solar to when they'll be net metering. I would do it. I just want to keep, people on City Power if possible. Sorry, Frank.
I know, sorry. I was like, oh, Frank's probably cringing. Well, he's AEP Energy, not AEP Ohio.
Yeah,
that's true. I put my email in the chat.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. It's basically comes down to your situation and your preferences.
I just want to give a little plug. I've worked with Solar United Neighbors since they were just a tiny neighborhood organization in DC. And they've been fantastic. So if you know people who are thinking about it, definitely suggest that they work with them, because they will get the help, the advocacy and the help that they need to figure out how to do solar on their homes.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. And if anyone else wants any information, you can email me and I can share the link to the website. I didn't really want to take time for the group today, but our co-op is open through August 31st, and we're going to have some more online and virtual events through that time. So love to see you all there too. I think Alec, you can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Awesome. Yeah, Yeah, thank you so much, Sam, for going over all of that. And yeah, very exciting that we have both of these things going on at the same time. So all kinds of options for our residents when it comes to clean energy. So and just wanted to touch quickly on timeline and give folks a sense of where we are with everything. So we're here now having our advisory group meeting here in June. The program started in June. Looking forward to July. That is when residents will really start receiving their first energy bill that reflects the Clean Energy Columbus program. So just want folks to be aware of that July is when you could expect residents to start seeing that appear on their bill. And then looking beyond, we talked about the refreshes. So that will be August, October, and December that you might hear from folks in the community saying they got an opt-out letter. That would be why. So it's just part of that refresh process. And then looking forward to renewable projects starting to come online, just as we kind of look beyond even this year, and for the aggregation supported community programs to launch and to start. Those will also be coming. And then if we go to the next, I think now is where we're going to pause and see if we have any other outstanding questions. I know we just shared a lot of information, so. And Kathy, I do see your hand is raised. I don't know if you have a question or if it's just been answered maybe.
No, I do actually have questions or comments, maybe. Building off what Cheryl was saying earlier about that one conversation on Facebook, that was just the latest for me of multiple conversations I've had with people. And people have called me saying they think the city price is 20% more or 100% more than the regular price, which I've had to say, no, it's not. They've called me angry that if they're with the city division of power, they're not covered, or they wondered if they were covered, and if not, why not? And why is the city division of power not on 100% renewable? Also, there was just this week an article in the Columbus Underground about our program, which the reporter called me about, and I tried to answer as many questions as I could. I also gave her your all's names and whatever contact information I had, and I don't know if she called you, but it's actually a pretty good article. So I just put a link to that in the chat, but just basically there is a lot of confusion about why are you not covered if you're with the city division of power is a big one. And I'm not really sure the best way to answer that if you all have any comments.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback, Kathy. And we're definitely aware that, you know, on social media, there's kind of a lot of misinformation or just confusion that is going on. So one of the things we are talking about doing is actually partnering with the OEC Emerging Leaders Group to host, you know, a training on the Clean Energy Columbus program, and have talked about actually starting a little bit of a kind of like a social media team of folks. You know, if you're supportive of the program, we want to make sure you're trained and kind of armed with all of the most accurate information about the program, and to help us monitor social media and, you know, ask those folks to really be empowered to kind of step in and maybe correct some of the misinformation that's out there. I think on the division of power side, you know, my understanding is just that per the PUCO regulations, they are not able to participate in the aggregation program.
That's correct.
So yeah, that one's kind of, I always leave it simply as that, you know, when folks ask, it's just, you know, they're not allowed to, those are just the state regulations.
Kathy, to give that a little context, the PUCO regulation requires that municipal aggregation participants are a customer of an investor-owned utility, and there are 4 in Ohio. So all of the municipal aggregations, not just Clean Energy Columbus, if someone is you know, if 1 mile down the road, my cousin is on a rural co-op and I'm on an investor-owned utility, and I can participate in the program and they cannot. And I know Scott deals with this a lot as well. That's just a regulatory constraint that is from PUCO. So that's the best answer. It's not that we would love to have as many customers participating as possible, obviously, but we do have to work within the regulations.
All right, thank you. I wasn't aware that the regulation said it could only be an investor-owned utility.
That's correct. Those are obviously AEP Ohio, Duke, which is kind of Cincinnati area, AES Ohio, which used to be Dayton Power and Light, and then the First Energy Utilities, Toledo Edison, Ohio Edison, and Cleveland Illuminating Company. But they're all considered one up under the First Energy umbrella.
Thank you, Frank. Okay. And I see, Larry, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Mine is pretty much along the lines of what the young lady just raised. How do we get, when for me to go to the NAACP and the Urban League and Impact and the faith-based community and say this is a good thing, it's going to be a good thing for our community based on what it's going to accomplish. And I'm sort of summarizing that. Now that we have these changes and know a little bit more, is it possible, Aaron, to put together a fact sheet to update? This is where it's at right now. Because what will happen is if it's $1 increase, a 20% increase, or whatever it may be, and somebody catches hold of that, then all of a sudden it's like, well, you didn't tell us it was going to be increased. You said it would be cheaper, and it will be cheaper in the long run. But for the moment, is it possible to just put together an update that we can, for me, that I can get out to such groups as the NAACP and the Urban League and Impact and the faith-based community, say here's the present status, especially with that, with such things as making sure the opt-out confusion, some clarity on the opt-out confusion, and some clarity in terms of possible penalty. So sort of like in just an update, here we at now, versus them coming to us later on and saying to Larry, this is, bringing all of these issues that we know right now are issues that we'll have to address at a later date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can certainly put something together. Just to make sure I'm clear, are you thinking like a one-pager that just kind of is an overview and update on where the program is and kind of how things are going? Okay. Right. Yeah, we can certainly do that. Yeah, and actually I know later we are going to ask and want feedback from you all on what kind of ways you want to be engaged by the Clean Energy Columbus program and how we should be continuing to communicate with stakeholders in the community. I think there's kind of a lot of different ways we can do that, so.
Okay, and then my final point is just, I would rather be in front of it. If it's going to be a 20 cents increase, whatever, I would rather be in front of it versus behind it saying, you didn't tell us, blah, 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 versus us sharing with them that kind of information, including the potential of a penalty and all that. So we can honestly say in full transparency that we shared this with you as we learned about it, we shared it with you, versus somebody coming back on me, especially NAACP, saying this is not what they said it was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're more than happy to put together kind of an overview and update. I think, again, we're trying to be as transparent as we can on the rate and where that stands. The difficulty just comes then because it changes, so that's the struggle, is we don't want to confuse folks and say, well, this is our price and this is what the PTC is, but that's only for a month and then it's going to change to something, and we don't know what that price is. But I hear you. We definitely want to be transparent with folks. And it will be easier to show once we get a little further into the program, because we'll be able to look back and see and have that kind of historic information to do comparisons. So,
well, Aaron, if I may, to your point, and I agree with you, but I think we need to tell them that. You see what I'm saying? That there's fluctuation in it, that, today is this, but tomorrow it could be that. Long as people hear that and understand, they're all right. You can't say it's this way today and let people assume that it's going to be like this from now on, versus telling them that this is where it's at today. It could fluctuate tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, I'm through.
That's okay. And I think I thought I saw in the chat, there wasn't, just so that we have group awareness in case anybody didn't see this. Cheryl asked if we have any idea how many are non-eligible because they either have another supplier already or yeah, folks who are with an alternative supplier. And then Scott answered that in the chat, roughly 35% of AEP Ohio customers already have an alternative supplier. So I just wanted to verbally say that so folks get that information. Okay, well, if there aren't other questions, for the sake of time, I think we're going to move on to energy efficiency programming. I'm going to hand things over to Brian.
All right, thank you, Erin. Energy efficiency programming. So we have been working together with some national support and some input from all of you to figure out what a draft program could look like. Here we have sort of a roundup of the feedback that we got from you in February. I'm not going to go through all of this, but generally speaking, it was how do we make sure that everyone has access to this, make sure that it gets the biggest sort of bang for the buck in terms of climate change mitigation, so greenhouse gas reductions, and sort of a general sense of how do we get our arms around the cost and leveraging additional funding. So that's kind of the general feedback that we got from all of you. Next slide, please, Alec. All right. So here are things that we went through in terms of some potential options. We had 6 total things, 4 ideas that were prioritized by this group. The first is implementation assistance. So all these great energy audits that we've been doing, what can those look like? Some look at efficiency opportunities, workforce, and then the green bank and loan loss. So those are 4 things that we looked at potentially with this funding. And even though we can't move forward with all 4, I can say that pieces of all 4 are still being considered with us and our partners. So this is what Bridget walked us through. Bridget, I don't know if you have anything you want to share about this process. You're smarter than I am when it comes to this.
No, I mean, I think, yeah, Brian, you know this stuff inside out now. We've been working on it for so many months, but I think we did go through a really, I would say, deep process of gathering data and looking at data and talking to a broad array of stakeholders to come up with some ideas, validate those ideas, and then really refine that to come up with a proposal that Brian is going to talk through.
Great, thank you. So you can see here there's a lot of data gathering. Do want to thank our national partners for doing that. We have some pretty cool tools available to us now that we didn't at the front end of this. And we also have some great validation of greenhouse gas emission and energy burden, which is really critical for us and for our residents, decrease in energy burden because of the programs that we're thinking about developing. So next, we'll talk about our goals. We spent a lot of time thinking about what we as a city wanted to get out of the program that we put together. We focused first on residential energy efficiency. Everything that we're doing is guided by our carbon neutral by 2050 and being aggressive with our 2030 goals as well. So this will support our CAP goal of reducing residential energy consumption by 10% by 2030. We are prioritizing low-income homes, making sure that we can have high energy burden areas, so places that pay a disproportionate share of their income just to keep the lights on in their home, but also want to make sure that we have access to this for everyone in the city. And then lastly, and just as important, how can we layer on workforce training as we roll out the energy efficiency program? So this gets us to a lot of information on this slide. This is a draft three-prong approach. What we're going to be doing, and Aaron talked about standing up the Workforce Development Committee. All of this is going to be run through, reviewed by, and validated by that committee. But this is sort of the draft, and apologize, I'm hiding everyone here so I can see the entire screen. This is the draft program that we put together. So the first stool would be funding the impact and MORPC weatherization programs to fill the gap between 200% and 250% of the federal poverty limit. This is a really great opportunity to expand already successful programs. Beth and her team and the folks at MORPC are investing, for impact, an average of $15,000 in home upgrades, so that they can then provide $7,500 in home weatherization efforts. So our goal here would be to build onto that, to use our energy savers to go out and identify additional homes that are not currently eligible and make them eligible through our city funding. The second is to look at the replacement of old energy inefficient appliances that are not currently covered by weatherization or would be outside the budget for weatherization. So we have looked primarily at home heating and cooling in this space. One thing that we've looked at is potentially replacing inefficient window AC units. That's something that's still really common here in Columbus, and even more so in our opportunity neighborhoods. And we know that would be an opportunity to provide some climate change adaptation resilience, as well as decrease energy burden and increase energy efficiency. We're also still having conversations about whether or not heat pumps are a better place to invest our funds. And that's something that we'll be talking to Impact and MORPC about, determine whether or not that's something that can be part of the basic weatherization that we provide, and then whether our funding would be needed to enhance the funding for those programs so that it is doable. Both of these are viewed from our perspective as funding opportunities. We're not looking at the city or any other entity investing additional resources and creating and then implementing a new program, but rather build on existing successful programs. So how does workforce build into this? We want to support the development of, as you see here, high road workforce development strategies. So in real people terms, that means jobs that pay a living wage, that can support a family, and really are sustaining for our opportunity neighborhoods. We're looking for opportunities to improve diversity in the weatherization workforce, and by extension, the skilled trades. So how do we get there? We're looking at linking youth 18 to 24 into our existing Energy Savers and Energy Advocates programs, expanding that program so that we're hiring more people. That is, and Beth, I think this is correct, a 16-week program that would have about 20 to 25 hours a week doing Energy Savers and Energy Advocates work. And then the other bulk of that time, up to 40 hours a week, getting remedial training on things like math and other skills, getting customer service training, and other soft skills training. So that at the end of that 16-week program, where they've been paid, I believe it is $17 an hour. I think that's correct. Beth, you'd have to correct me if I'm wrong there.
You're right.
So excellent. So they're paid $17 an hour, which is above our $15 an hour minimum wage. They would have access to free in-class learning. And then at the end of it, we want them to have access to a funded pre-apprenticeship program. There are a lot of different programs like that that exist in Columbus, and we have time to map all of that out. But essentially, we want folks that graduate from Columbus City Schools that have an interest in vocational education and the trades to have immediate access to a real job that pays a real wage, training that makes them excellent candidates for these pre-apprentice programs, and then the funding they need to be successful in those pre-apprentice programs. So I just threw a whole lot of information at you. I think what you can see with all of this is that we have looked for opportunities to prioritize our opportunity neighborhoods and opportunity youth as much as possible. We're trying to recognize our funding limitations. That's why we are specifically focused on youth workforce and not looking at upskilling or reskilling people that are already in the workforce here in Columbus, and trying to make sure that every dollar that we spend through the CCA funds has a positive ripple effect throughout our community. I think I've said enough words at this point. I don't know if we want to pause for questions now or if we want to wait until later. Look to other folks for that. Alder Price, I think you have a question, sir.
Yes, sir. First of all, Brian, good job. This is what I'm talking about in terms of an update to the community. All this is very positive, good news. This is what we need to be sharing. And I'm being specific in terms of the NAACP and faith-based groups that we asked to come and support this, and they did. This is the kind of information that I think would make them happy, for lack of a better way to say it. Because we have to balance this with obviously a potential 20% whatever increase and all the other stuff that we talked about that may be on the negative side, one could perceive on the negative side. I think this is good, positive information. So I say that simply to say, if we banks can somehow capitalize this and be able to put it maybe even in a slide presentation, I think it would be good to share update NAACP faith-based community. Here's an update. This is where we're at. And this is some very good positive stuff. Okay.
Great. That's really good feedback. That's exactly the kind of feedback that we need. Make sure that we are, Aaron, taking our committee probably on the road a little bit once we have this fully fleshed out, and do some stakeholder engagement and updates on what we're proposing to put forward. There's one thing that did not make the slide because it's still probably a little bit of a pie in the sky plan, but I believe that we can pull it off. So we have talked about doing 5 demo homes throughout Opportunity neighborhoods in Columbus. Go in and do a deep investment in energy efficiency and home repairs to show just what's possible when you go in and do a sort of a mini remodel, if you will, of a home in the urban environment. As we support and frankly, as a city push urban infill and reuse of existing housing stock here in Columbus, we really need to demystify the idea that investing in energy efficiency is too expensive for anyone. We know that it can be done cost effectively and can make the home healthier for the folks that live there and make our community healthier as well. So we're really excited about exploring how all of our partners in Columbus can come together and be a part of that. How we can bring free access to Wi-Fi, for instance, and internet for the family that lives there. How we can bring in impact and do sort of the whole home, whole family wraparound services to identify exactly what that family needs to be successful and bring those resources to them. So I think of it as the city of Columbus and the Columbus Way bringing the best of the best to these 5 homes and demonstrating just what's possible when we work together. And I want to thank Beth especially for being crazy enough to think that's a good idea with me.
Well, and I wanted to add to tie in what Samantha was talking about earlier. After this call, I am finishing the grant application to put solar on those homes too. So we're trying to get 10 homes in opportunity neighborhoods funding to be able to be part of the Solar United Neighborhoods coalition as well.
That's awesome. Really awesome. So any other questions or comments about what we're sketching out for our three-pronged approach for reducing energy burden in Columbus? And I will take no questions or comments as full agreement with everything that is on this slide. All right, everyone agrees. Next slide. Okay, so here we have two really cool maps. This is from the GreenLink thing, right, Bridget? Did I get the right partner? Excellent. So GreenLink has put together this really cool interactive map that I do not know how to use, but I'm going to learn how to use it. It allows us to really dig in and understand. We went originally zip code and then tried to dig down into census tract and understand how much are the energy bills in that area, what's the average energy burden, and then what kind of change can we make by expanding these energy efficiency programs. So you can see here, we've got an average. Averages are always dangerous, but there we go. The average in these areas is well above a national standard for energy burden. And we're looking at a decent amount of savings for them for their energy bill. Not as much as we can with some other programs, but more importantly, I think, or just as importantly, increase in home comfort and reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We are working with a professor at OSU to embed her, by the way, in all of this work. That's something that Erin is heading up. And our goal would be to track everything pre, during, and post to this program so we can say with specificity what we have accomplished with the homes that we invest in. So this would be the no heat pump option. And then this next slide, you'll see, I think, the big difference the heat pump makes even here in Columbus, Ohio. So there you're looking at about an average of $190 a year in savings, much closer to that 6% total energy burden. So really makes a huge difference if we're able to include a heat pump in all of our weatherization efforts. I'm learning a lot about them. I'm like probably most people in Ohio, you don't heat your home with electricity because it's too expensive. That's what we've always been told. And I hear heat pump and I only think heating. There are some apparently, and this is probably not news to anyone else on the call, but it was to me, the tricycle heat pumps that can take care of your water heating, your cooling, and your heating for the home. We have great advances in this technology, and we are already seeing in our modeling the huge difference it could make. So one of our commitments in working with Impact and with MORPC is bringing in GreenLink, national experts in these programs, and in documenting the impact of these technologies, and just do really a free assessment of what we're already providing through those programs, see if it is the best that we can provide at the best price, and identify places where potentially something like a heat pump could become the new standard offer as we do weatherization. But again, that's not a given that will happen. I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that that's a definite, but it is something that we're working through with our partners to see what's possible. I believe that's my last slide, but Alec will have to tell me if it is or not. Yes, I'm done. So I will now hand it over to Alec for the remainder of this discussion.
Thanks, Brian. So now everyone, now that we have this sort of high level, kind of the three-pronged approach, more or less what it looks like, we wanted to take an opportunity to pause, go into breakout groups, have a little bit more of a discussion with all of you, really on these two key questions. of one, how can we best communicate this energy efficiency plus workforce programming to the public, but then also how can we engage you all as we move forward. I saw a comment in the chat to this very effect, so we'd love to get your input both in the discussion. We're also going to share a whiteboard link in the chat to guide our discussion. So I'm going to stop screen sharing here for a second. And then I'm going to send us into breakout groups, one with me and one with Jenna, just like last time. And we will see you there shortly. All right, I think everyone is back. Thanks everyone for engaging in that discussion. We're going to head back. We're going to hand it back over to Erin just for some next steps.
Here we go. Yeah, thank you, Alex. So we're kind of coming to the close of our meeting here and just wanted to talk about next steps and what is next when it comes to the Clean Energy Columbus program, and kind of thinking through, how we can continue communicating with stakeholders such as yourselves, and then with the public as well on the program. Wanted to do a quick look back at our meetings together. We've had 8 meetings together since the fall of last year, kind of learning all about the aggregation process together and going through this process together as we establish Clean Energy Columbus, and really just wanted to thank all of you for the time and dedication you've had toward this work and for this program. I know it has been a lot of work, and just really appreciate all of the time that you all have committed to this. I think your feedback and participation has been extremely invaluable to us, and just have really appreciated having this group to kind of help us establish the program and have the best program that we can have for our community. So I think if we go to the next slide. Again, just kind of quickly revisiting timeline here. We kind of went over this earlier. I might go to the next. I know we're getting close to our time here. One of the things we did want to hear back from you on, though, is how do we engage moving forward? And so one thing I did want to note, we've talked about this being the last meeting for our kind of aggregation advisory group, because we now have the program up and running and launched. Did want to give a little bit of context that does not mean we will not be updating you all or the community. We do plan to give regular updates on the Clean Energy Columbus program through our Sustainable Columbus initiative. So that is an avenue where folks in the public can get information and updates on the Clean Energy Columbus program. So I did want to make that clear, but I am going to hand things over to Alec, because we are going to do a poll to get some of your feedback on other ways we might be able to engage.
And we have a few options here. Just going to do a quick Zoom poll, just sort of a straw poll of, for folks in the room, how would you like to engage? So this is going to be select as many as would be useful or helpful to you. I'll launch this. Hopefully you should be seeing the poll on your screen, and you select as many as make sense to you. Ways that you or someone would engage moving forward. This is sort of a list pulled from ideas that we came up with, as well as kind of communications venues from other CCAs around the country that have done some of these moving forward. So I'm seeing some votes coming in. Thanks for making some selections. Looks like a few more folks to vote.
I have a question. What is an online engagement portal or active email account and phone number?
So that is meant to, for the online engagement, that would be, online portal would be something like, a comment box that you submit something and then you get a response back by email, and it would also have contact information there. Not too different from what's on the website right now, but kind of with more rapid response. And if folks have other suggestions, please do click other and then pop your suggestion in the chat, because if there's something that we have missed, I want to make sure to capture that as well. All right, I think that we have everyone. If not, make sure to get that vote in. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share results. So it looks like lots of interest in quarterly meetings or updates, interest in a newsletter, in social media engagement, also in office hours, lots of interest in all of these. No one doesn't want to be engaged, which is great. And I see some one other as well. So I wonder if there's a note in the chat about that. If someone wants to chime in with their suggestions, let us know. one push option. Thanks, Cheryl. Great. Well, with that, I will hand it back over to Erin to take us home.
Great. Yeah. Thank you everyone for the feedback. Thank you again for participating in this aggregation advisory group. Really have enjoyed this process with all of you. And again, just appreciate all of the time and effort and energy you all have put into this. Did want to leave you with contact information so that you can contact us about the program at any point moving forward. I think most of you on here, as I kind of always scroll through the list, probably have my contact information already, but wanted to make sure you have that you also have Scott's contact information if you need to contact Trey Bell with any questions, as well as Frank's, and just kind of laying out kind of our different roles. But at the end of the day, all three of us are a team working on this program. The three of us are meeting weekly to check in on how the program is going, and give updates and make sure we're moving everything forward. So I think that is it and all that I had. Just thank you all again, and we will be in touch with you. It is not goodbye, certainly. So. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.